Hello, 40K friends. It's Ryan here with a disclaimer for two different reasons. First of all, we're going on a one-shot adventure because good old Tommy got the COVID. So he's doing well. We've been checking in with him. Everything in the health world is good, but the exhaustion world is definitely wearing him down. Nurgle's plague comes for us all eventually. But he is on the path to recovery. But we wanted to make sure that we had fresh content for you, which is why we are going to be returning to our Blood Pact one-shot and continuing on that journey, which means it's time for the second half of this disclaimer. Our show is usually, really fun. Is Atticus going to get promoted? Will he and Valentine be good friends? How will the gang get together or not? There's still a lot of shooting people in the head and darkness, but there are positive moments in that. This is the bad guy campaign in the Hell Galaxy in the nastiest IP ever. So there's just going to be a lot of bad stuff. I'm not saying they're going to do all of it. I'm just saying it's definitely going to be in the world. There's going to be torture. There's going to be psychological collapse. There's going to be body horror. You can't go into the Eye of Terror without vaguely touching on enslavement. There's a lot of things that are just dark. So if you want to journey with us into the grim darkness, amazing. If you don't, just skip this arc. We'll be back to Valentine stuff soon, and you could bounce over and check out Dum-Dums and Dragons, which is super fun. It's D&D. It's very cheerful, and you'll have a cool palate cleanser. So when you come back here, you'll be like, oh man, Tom is really trying to kill these players. But for now, we're journeying into the extra grim darkness of the world of the Blood Pact.
Welcome back to the grim darkness of the 41st Millennium. I'm Inquisitor Temperance Pryce, keeper of the Inquisition's Black Library, and this is a special report on the repercussions of the events of Blood Pact Prison Break. Set in the Genesys Adaptation of Warhammer 40,000's Dark Heresy RPG, this report features Game Master Ryan LaPlante and players Tyler Hewitt, Laura Hamstra, and Borovic. With the Chaos Space Marine Thrauk set loose, what will become of his now captives Karl and Flynch? Find out next in this episode of the one-shot Blood Pact Requiem.
When serving the gods of chaos, there are the highest of highs for the very few and the lowest of lows for a great deal of the many. And within the Eye of Terror, there are shining beams, beacons of the gods' power, bright souls that burn and have the ability to rise and become more, and often fall and become less and less. But the majority of people end up living in the Eye of Terror within the shadows, surrounded by knives and teeth and endless hunger, trying to eke out some form of existence. And for the denizens of the Eye of Terror, living within the permeable membrane of the warp, an open wound on reality, they know nothing else. They are what many people think of as all of Chaos's followers. However, some Chaos worshippers come from other places. The consanguinity, for example, the sanguinary worlds, surviving members of the Blood Pact, having left false hope under the new, let's say, stewardship, realistically ownership, of the Night Lord Space Marine solely known as Thrauk. Flynch and Karl, you have succeeded in your mission to assassinate the Sons of Sek that would hurt Archon Gower's ongoing war in the Sabbat worlds. But what you had not expected was what went down in that prison. Your compatriot, Vesnia the Demonologist, rose up to become what you thought of as a blood saint, only to discover with the great horror of betrayal once the assassination was complete, that she had fallen to the god Slanesh, the god of pleasure, the god of excess and perfection, instead of the sacred corn that you worshipped.
Nope, can't have that.
And Morgath, in facing off against her, became an aspect of Khorne, demon-possessed himself. But Khorne's power was not strong enough to triumph in this case, and you watched him die, both as a demon and as a man, as his blade shattered. And then you were hauled out. You're both heavily injured, At the end of a suicide mission from which you had no real expectation or belief that you could make it out, especially with how injured you had become, only to discover that a Chaos Space Marine is more than enough to handle a prison, especially after the work you had done to soften up its defenders and elsewhere. And you ended up jammed into the commander's shuttle, with Thrauk taking the helm. He originally put Karl behind it, assuming that Karl was a pilot, only to discover that Karl, I think, is not a pilot. Does he have any piloting skills on that sheet there, Tyler?
Not that I'm seeing, no.
Yeah, so put Karl in, then swore to himself in a language that sounds reminiscent of parcel tongue meets Russian. Probably right in the middle, so just an incredibly menacing yet poetic language that you cannot understand. And took control himself and flew you out of the system, activating a beacon, and you were left heavily injured in the back of this shuttle, just surviving. Would you say anything to the Space Marine that has claimed you as his own? What would you be doing?
I mean, the last that I remember is Thrauk was going to kill us last.
That was the favor, yeah.
So
and he declared last, but not necessarily today.
Yeah,
as he hauled you out.
Flynch would just be kind of staying out of the way, lest Thrauk was like, "Oh yeah, you guys," and just kills us out of hand.
I mean, Karl has spoken to him before. His presence, like, causing extreme fear and like physical anxiety.
And then Karl fled because he did not feel equipped to negotiate with a Space Marine and left it to Morgath with the combination of fearlessness and incompetence to handle negotiations.
Yeah. But in this situation, I think Karl would risk the question, and probably the question only, just shakily saying, "Oh, what are you going to do with us?"
And in response, the hulking giant in black-blue armor that blends into the space you can see outside, the void, with its own lightning strike shapes, and the hulking jetpack backpack that Thrauk wears, along with a helmet to remind you that has a bat-like vampirish skull face on the beginning of it, with two back-swept red wings, and crackling lightning claws that he can extend from his gauntlets or draw back in. A la 40K Wolverine, he just starts to laugh through the Vox grill of his helm, which comes out garbled and low. And at first you think it's choking until you realize that it is just a flawlessly manic laughter. And then you're left in silence. And he sets up a piece of technology constructed from several pieces within his own armor. You haven't seen this before, Flynch. You're heavily injured, but probably curious. Mm-hmm. And you would realize as it went on that once he removes his Vambrant and slides one of his lightning claws across his arm to fill the top of this small machine that looks almost like a companion cube once it has been put together, only boxier and sharper, it begins to pulse. You don't see the pulse in the atmosphere around you. You can just feel it in your bones, in your gut, in your blood, in your brain. It's tremendously unpleasant, as though you are contracting and expanding along with what is coming out of this machine. Can you roll me a tech use?
Yes.
It's a difficulty 3.
Intellect. Difficulty 3. Okay.
We will add a setback because you are heavily injured.
Yep.
We will add a setback because this thing is like driving your bones crazy.
Okay.
But we will give you a boost because you are a heretic.
Would you consider that setback to be disorientation?
The injury one, yes.
Then
actually both of them, yes.
I get to remove one of them then because
Great.
I have tempered will.
Fabulous. So we'll say probably with your experience, it would be the chaotic effects that are coming out, the pulsing of blood and bone. Yeah. You've dealt with soul grinders. You've dealt with other combinations of demon and machine over time. Lesser demons, but you've dealt with them before. So those uncomfortable feelings, hey, that's a Sunday at church.
Yeah.
I will give you a boost because you are a heretic. You've experienced this kind of technology before. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this roll? I'm going to say story points at this point, because you've been hauled out of the prison, are resetting themselves. So you guys have 3 and I have 2.
Okay.
All right. Oh, this is a tech use. I actually get to remove 2 setback dice.
There you go. You have no setback.
Fuck yeah. All right. So I'm just going to roll then, I think. Yeah?
Go for it.
You're driving the bus.
1 success, 4 advantages.
1 success, 4 advantages. You realize, looking at this with the feelings that you were dealing with, you haven't dealt with this technology directly, and you've never seen it this compactly. Generally speaking, technology over time, especially in the sanguinary worlds or the Imperium, tends to get bigger and worse because they're not necessarily experimenting. Sanguinary worlds have compensated for that with a lot of demon technology and other blood magics that allows them to kind of innovate in a way that the Imperium doesn't. But you haven't seen anything without a demon in it that's this small, that's this powerful. What it definitely is a warp beacon that's been signaled by his blood in a way that could not be triggered by anyone else. So you and Karl are now left in a ship where the lights are ritually smashed out by a space marine that is 5 times the size of either of you. And Thrauk just goes perfectly still. And there is abject silence. You can hear the chug of the rebreathers and the systems that are keeping the atmosphere alive inside with you. But those are the only sounds. You're both people who've dealt with chaotic extremes, so this is not as, I would say, necessary. I don't know what your response would be based on your experience in the sanguinary worlds, which is why I'm leaving that up to you.
Yeah.
But this is not just, you sit for an hour. 12 hours pass. 24 hours pass. 36 hours pass. There's no mention of food. There's no mention of water. Thrauk is not moving.
I think to stave off starvation and dehydration, or at least to stave off what would probably be like just the unbearable sensation of slowly starving and slowly dehydrating, Karl begins to pray. And I don't think he's brave enough to pray out loud in front of Thrauk, because we don't know much about Thrauk in general, but I don't know whether uttering the name of Khorne would cause him to flay me, or if he would allow me to do that.
Yeah, you're in a land of question marks. The person who had the greatest knowledge about the inside of Thrauk was Vesnia, who melted down and was absorbed by the warp. The person who was fearless enough that you would allow to take those risks was Morgath. So it's just you in this space.
So not even a whisper, but I think try my best to go into a trance of just I think on the prison ship I basically ran through the names for, I think, death and murder.
Yeah, you started with the names of death and then looped them and blasted the prisoners with it, which triggers the big riot.
So I'm just doing something similar where it's just all the different words for blood that I know. And reciting the name of Khorne as well. But not out loud. Wouldn't dare do it out loud.
Flinch, what is your approach to these long hours?
Flinch would just quietly cough, like give like a dry cough, like just like maybe Mr. Space Marine will notice.
He does not move in reaction to your cough.
Okay. Then I would say that the coughing probably starts at like the 36-hour mark where it's like getting quite thirsty. And then like 6 hours later, Flinch is just like, I don't know if you guys like haven't had anything to drink for like a day. It's rough. And Flynch will just get up, stand up kind of shakily, and just approach Thrauk, just like head bowed.
He holds still.
Okay.
There's no movement, no response.
What would be like a respectful thing to call Thrauk? Because I think Flynch would know. I just don't.
Well, I think it also depends, because Flynch's terminology would all be based on what you would call people in the sanguinary worlds, which tended to be blood names, but may not be the thing. So Magister was a very high-ranking term. That was the term for the direct servants of Gower. Sirdar and High Sirdar were the equivalent of kind of like colonel to general. Like there are Edagowers, and then the Sirdars can be above them. You could go as generic as kind of like Lord. Lord is always a relatively safe one for people who are above you in the Imperium or elsewhere. It's also historically pretty accurate.
Okay.
Because you would be aware this motherfucker has been around for 10,000 plus years.
Right. Yes. Okay, so I would
He's
say...
also a Night Lord, like a Space Marine of the Night Lord's Legion, which you would know from... because you're corrupted, but you would know that from the heraldry and the way he is styled.
Okay, so Flynch would say, "My Lord, Night Lord, Karl and I, we will die soon. We need food. We need water. So if you intend to kill us, please kill us now. Death by dehydration is not good."
Flynch.
I would rather die now than go through the next the 36 hours. Thank you.
And a crackling lightning claw stabs outwards and hangs a quarter of an inch in front of your throat. You can feel the distortion field around it that is fracturing reality, so close to severing your head. Thrauk's eyes glow red. The rest of his suit still silent and still. And in the black, you just see this menacing skull-like face look down at you. And he just says, "What would you pay to live?"
Is there anything worthwhile that you would want, my Lord, Night Lord?
What do you offer? You're so desperate to live, and you stand in the dark, pretending to be unafraid. What would you pay?
My eternal servitude.
Accepted.
Good.
And he raises the one blade of his lightning claw and points to the left of him, where you can see a refresher station that has been hidden in shadow because this is a shuttle clearly designed for longer missions. So there is water, there are rations and other things that are available.
Oh, water. And Flynch just runs to it, starts drinking.
Thrauk just deactivates and goes back to being still where Thrauk is hiding. Hiding.
See, Karl.
Yeah, Karl sees.
I will also point out, Karl.
Yeah.
Can you roll me I got to get the sheet out that tells me all your options. Can you roll me a streetwise? Or I would accept a perception.
Sure, I'll do perception. Perception. Is there any impact from going 36 hours without food and water?
Yeah, this one's going to be difficulty 3, and you will have 2 setback stacked on it. You will have 1 bonus because you are experienced enough. If you were at the top of your game, you'd see this for free. This is a question of, can you put this all together in the level of injury and the level of exhaustion that you have?
Okay. Let's see. 2 advantage, 2 failure. I've lost an eye. I don't see too good.
Yes. You know you shouldn't swear that oath.
Yeah.
But you can't put together why. It's just a gut feeling of don't do that thing. But the advantage we will let you carry over as boost to your checks in dealing with this creature, because you're realizing there's shit going on here you're not entirely sure of.
Yeah. Flynch made a good point about a preferred death. This was a suicide mission, and Karl had an idea of how he was going to go out, and now that is way, way, way beyond where we're at now. But yeah, swearing eternal servitude. He's already sworn eternal servitude, right? As an Edigauer in the blood. Yeah, so
correct. He may not have realized it right away, but Karl is figuring out, despite his fugue of injury, what is a big problem.
Yeah. It's one thing to be like, I'm going to double down on worshiping corn. There's another thing of like bringing another chaos god into the mix of your fealty.
You are of the Death Brigade of, Archon Erlock Gower. And now a member of Karl's unit has pledged undying loyalty to someone who is not Archon Erlock Gower.
Okay. I will have to tuck that one away for when I'm a little stronger.
So are you just going to remain where you are?
I think I'll, if 36 hours have passed, I will venture the question once again and say, Lord, what is it you're going to do with us?
And a lightning claw extends from his right gauntlet. And you just see the Night Lord raise it up to light his own face with it. Mm-hmm. And then it flicks towards you and back. And the claw sinks into his hand. And it takes you a moment to realize that he has neatly severed the pinky finger of your left hand. Just cleanly, with no additional damage. But he severed a finger that is bleeding, and you now need to tourniquet.
I stick my pinky nub into my mouth and gratefully drink of my own blood.
Good.
And secret away the pinky meat.
Yeah, so you can now
save it
eat
for
your
later.
own finger.
Yeah.
Or like snack.
Undying loyalty, you get access to rations that are ancient. Questions, you get to eat your own finger. It's not all downhill.
Yeah.
You are stuck there for another 3 days.
Oh my God.
Karl,
right, the pinky's gone. I've eaten the pinky.
Yeah, you slowly drift into madness and raving prayer. While Flynch, you can use the refresher as much as you need. You functionally, as of the two of you, you have access to a toilet and basic supplies. Thrauk remains silent for those days, only beginning to, if either of you attempt to speak, shrieking a bat-like war cry that is so loud that it causes your ears to bleed until you remain silent again.
All right, Karl would have tried that, and yeah, it would have received that response, yeah.
And at that point, floating in space, you are so used to the pitch blackness that surrounds you that when light emerges directly towards you, it is near blinding. But you have that moment where you can scrabble forwards. You, Karl, hoping for rescue. You, Flynch, generally curious, doing pretty well. Thrauk, holding still, non-reactive. But what you see is a tear in the face of the universe. A warp rift opens briefly, and a dagger of a ship soars through it. It is blue and black, covered in lightning bolts and other images of horror, floating forth with tendrils of the warp left behind it, but none clinging to its shape. When you look down at the control panel, you can see that this ship, the shuttle is struggling to identify it, searching the Imperial databases until it draws up a massive warning covered in red X's and Inquisition symbols. But you can see the name Tenebrous Claw. And it is recorded as a ship that is to be destroyed on sight, no matter the lives lost. If your ship is not armed, the Imperium demands that the shuttle be flown directly into the bridge in a suicide attack. And should any ship successfully destroy the Tenebrous Claw, they are ordered to drag it behind them, if possible, otherwise remain with it until they report to the Inquisition immediately. Which you were crafty enough to know means death sentence. Mm-hmm. Thrauk steps forward, activates the engines of this shuttle, and flies you in to your new home, the Tenebrous Claw, a battleship. Not in the sense of a battleship on the grand scale of like a Gloriana-class battleship, but a small, sleek terror weapon that is a ship of the Night Lord's Legion. When you travel through it, you can see it's intended for a crew of about 120. It is just you two and Thrauk. The ship is in vast disrepair. It is pitch black throughout it. There are minimal running lights. Only in a few sections you can see where they have not been shattered. However, Flynch, as you journey through the ship, you realize there aren't even mountings for lights in a large number of areas. They're it's designed to be pitch black and horrifying. And Thrauk moves to the bridge. Thrauk just leaves you. You are left to wander this ship. What would you do? The ship probably has about 1 kilometer of internal space spread throughout it. Like, it is vast. So it is quite possible for you to just have no fucking clue where Thrauk is. You've just got a lot of black rooms on a massive ship.
Well,
yeah.
Flynch would go exploring. Flynch has got tech use, so she's just automatically going to go to the nearest panel that she can see that might be able to access something, try to pull up schematics, do something.
Great. Can you roll me a tech
she's
use?
got to be helpful to, her new master. Tech use?
Yeah, let's go with tech use.
Okay.
This will be, because you're going through the computer systems, this will be difficulty 3. It'd be difficulty 4 if you weren't you, but you're coming from the dark side of things, and you've had 10,000 more years of code than previous. This would have been like difficulty 5 at time of Horus Heresy.
Right.
Difficulty 3 as coding has advanced over time. But it is an Astartes system, so it's not a light hack in the traditional sense. You've got your Mechadendrite, you've got all that going on.
Yeah, so I'll use those, so I get to add 2 boost for those.
Great. And you will have a setback.
Yep.
Because there's limited power through a number of different areas of the ship, so you don't have access to kind of all of the different mainframes that you normally would.
Luckily I've got the knack for it, so no, I don't have it set back.
Fair enough. Well, you don't have that one. I'm going to give you an additional setback because it is a terror weapon ship, so keeping a schematic on it is kind of a terrible idea for a ship that you're going to constantly change over time.
Then I guess it's good that I get to remove 2 setbacks.
Yeah, then you're good. You've got that, which is nice. And I am going to use a story point to increase one of your threats to one of your purple go red. Purple.
Purple go red, yeah. Bye purple, hello red. Okay. That everything?
That is everything.
Great.
Dude, tech use is just like, it's my thing. It's the only thing I can do, but it's my thing. 3 success, 3 advantage.
Great. You have a schematic of what the ship used to look like when it was originally built. As you begin to explore, you discover that a lot of this has changed, but the core structure of the ship is the same.
Cool.
And the location of the majority of the at least superficial internal systems are all the same. Weapons placement has been shifted as you begin to explore. The electrical grids have been shifted. Entrances and exits have been shifted from almost all of the major areas that would be used by Marines. They don't give a shit about anything that was set aside for serfs. Doesn't give a shit about anything set aside. But basically, the Horus Heresy was a bunch of Marine-on-Marine violence where they all had the exact same ships. So there is a strong impetus to redesign the interior of a ship so people don't know what to do on a boarding action. They learned a lot of ugly lessons over the course of that war. You can also see that no one has been looking after this ship for approximately, you'd guess, at least 1,000 years before there's been there's probably not been a full crew of engine seers and other people to keep the ship running since the heresy. Mm-hmm. But this has been hundreds, if not 1,000 or more years of constant disrepair of Thrauk doing half-assed, I don't really give a shit about this Space Marine work to keep it running. So you have more work than you could do as a full-time job to keep this ship going. However, you can start making a list of priorities.
I was just going to say, better get started. It's Flynch is just all right, we'll look for the most effective central place to set up quarters for herself. And then it's just what keeps us alive? And then what keeps the ship moving is priority.
Knowing Karl is heavily injured, would you be taking time to look after Karl to make sure Karl is okay? Would you be doing the job, the work to make sure that you're okay? What is your general setup here? You were better off than Karl when you arrived.
Yes.
I will also say, Thrauk left you your power stake or your power knife, I think you had, because he did not think there's no way you could take that fucking guy in close combat. It'd be hilarious, but it's not going to happen. Your Inferno pistol has been taken from you.
Oh.
And your armor is damaged enough that it's not holding up as military carapace anymore.
Okay. Flynch will just stroll on up to Karl. Just say you'll serve him. It's fine. We'll get out of here eventually.
Do you know what you've done by swearing to serve him?
Flynch moves real close to Karl, just mouth right to ear, so she's literally not even expelling air, just mouthing the words, and just says, "You don't have to mean it."
And desperately, Karl, because she's close to him, just wraps his arms around her and she won't let her leave. He's like, "It doesn't matter if you mean it. He thinks you mean it. And the powers beyond our scope hear things. They hear what we say. You said the words.
But they know what we feel. They know.
Flynch, I don't know that I can help you.
Then help yourself. And Flynch turns on her heel and goes to set up camp.
So, Flynch, you begin to set up your own camp within the ship, focused on, I'm imagining you put yourself somewhere close to the engineerium or one of the other areas that would be of priority work for you.
And if it means putting a bedroll or some sort of a blanket or something even remotely comfortable in a closet, that's fine.
Yeah, so we'll say you two both spend time familiarizing yourself with the ship and the areas around you. You realize this ship did have a crew of 120, probably more than that spread out over time. But as you travel through, you see them crucified, stabbed with, beams and blades stabbed through their wrists and their ankles, skin flayed from their forms, faceless, eyeless, just gore strewn, but all of it ancient. You can see a progression of death from before to now, and it becomes apparent over time that Thrauk, or whoever owned this ship before Thrauk, tortured their way through everyone who was on board until there was no crew left. This does mean there are a lot of cots. There are other things you can take that are gore-strewn, but otherwise, so you can both functionally set yourself up in what would be the equivalent of a barracks-style room wherever you want it on the ship. The biggest question I would have for you, Flynch, in terms of your setup is, would you set up lights in your area, knowing there are no lights on the ship?
Only in areas that didn't have any sort of viewports. So no light. I would ensure there would be multiple layers of doors between where I was, and it would be portable lights that I would carry around. Nothing on permanently, because Thrauk doesn't need to be exposed to that if he does not want to.
That makes sense. Karl, you have been abandoned by your heretic who is now serving this vessel quietly and silently. What are you doing?
I need to nourish myself somehow.
Yeah, you can find rations. You essentially have the full walk of the ship, which I think you get desperate enough to just try, and no consequence.
Yeah, okay. Because this ship, the flaying and crucifixion of the former crew, does that confer to me some kind of Khorne allegiance, or is that not really necessarily in
their
his
heads
wheelhouse?
Are still on.
Okay.
Khorne likes blood,
Skulls
but Khorne is also skulls for Skull Throne, and a lot of this was clearly not battle. This was stretched out over time. So it could be blood magic, but you don't get the feel of the warp in this vessel.
Okay.
It doesn't feel like the Sanguinary Worlds when you're around the Blood Saint or when you've been around other major kind of religious figures. This just feels like a ship. It's just spooky as shit.
Yeah. Can I tell if the ship is moved? Since it's arrived and Thrauk has boarded, have we moved, or is that impossible for me to tell?
You have had the ability to just kind of walk around and open doors. Nothing has been locked to you that you're aware of, other than the bridge. You can't get in there. But looking at the viewports, you are back in the warp. The engines rumble. You're having nightmares every night, which are nightmares for even you, which is a part of ongoing warp travel. The warp can just find your weaknesses and kind of claw them open and apart.
So trying to set up some kind of beacon or get help from the Sabbat worlds or whatever is no-go right now, as I understand it.
You're in the warp, so it'd be questionable. It would depend on how much... Do you have forbidden knowledge or anything that would specifically key into the Sabbat worlds?
I do not, no.
You could try a tech use. It'd be possible. It could take weeks, if not months, if not years to go back and forth, but if you could send off a coded message from the ship, that might be able to get help, or at least let Gower know. Either A, the mission is complete, which Gower would not know at this point, or B, get me the fuck out of here. Also possible.
My tech use is garbage, but Flynch is not.
So you have a heretic you can speak to.
Yeah, I think I would try to speak to Flynch about getting us out of here. Yeah, I would approach Flynch and say things like, Flynch, look, if that was just talk back there to Lord Thrauk, then I think I have a way for you to prove that. We need to set up some kind of beacon or send out a coded message that can be reached even from here in the warp to our brethren, so that they know that the mission was completed and that we are still here and we are prisoners of this monster.
Do you really think anyone will come to get us? Do you really think? Do you?
I have faith that they'll come to get him. And we can still be of service. We can still be of use.
Okay. Priority, survive. Agreed?
Yes.
Priority 2, ship doesn't break down in the warp. Agreed?
I hadn't considered that. I suppose so, yes.
Priority 3, communicate with our worlds.
Yes.
Okay.
How are we on priority 1 and 2?
Not the best.
So the
We
two of
can't-
you begin to work together to
Yeah.
keep the ship running. Flynch, you now have what one might call unskilled labor that can assist you in your work around the ship. And as the weeks go on, the ship begins to get patched together. It's still traveling through the warp. You don't know where you're going, and you can't find any information on that. And there's no sign. There's no, we're going to check the stars outside to see what's happening. When you look outside, it's just a hellish nightmare that slowly warps your mind, which you may be using for your recreational time, just to try to chill out. But that's what's happening there. However, you're beginning to hear in the nights sobbing and laughter through different parts of the ship. You're hearing claws scrabbling against metal. You're hearing things moving through the space and around you, and the shadows are beginning to seem to move. The ship is growing more menacing in ways that you cannot explain. Normally, you would be comforted by these things if they came along with the feeling of a demon or a god. It is explainable. You could understand when you open a door into a room where you hear a child crying on a sanguinary world and there's nothing inside, there is a feeling of frost. There's a feeling of sickness, and you know that room was blessed by a tragedy or a dark message in the past. This time you hear sobbing, you open a door, there's nothing in that room, you feel a hand on your cheek, you turn and there's nothing, but there are none of the feelings that are associated with that. It is just disorienting to an absolute extreme. Can you both give me a fear check of difficulty
Fear
3, which is discipline or cool? Discipline if you're trying to hang on to kind of like your overall sense of control and training. Cool if you're just trying to like wave it off and be chill about it.
Flynch will use discipline.
Karl will likely flip out. Let's see. Sorry, that was difficulty 3?
Difficulty 3, and it'll be 1 red.
Okay.
And this is taking place over weeks. You are very hardened members of the darkest cabals imaginable, so it's not like, oh, I thought I saw a ghost and now I'm scared. Like, no. This is a campaign of strangeness over weeks while you work on the ship.
Oh, 2 threats.
1 threat, 1 failure. Or, sorry, this dice roller doesn't tell me what this is. Let me re-roll this.
Oh, Tyler.
Oh shit. Okay, that's a despair then. 1 despair and 1 threat.
Oh no.
You have both been repairing the ship, and Flynch, you've been putting together an elaborate plan to be able to send a message to the sanguinary worlds off of the ship in an untraceable way. You were both solidly locked in on this plan. You've noticed, Flynch, as you've been timing over the weeks, that the ship drops out of the warp at a regular interval. It seems to be about once every, on shipboard, 7 days. You do not know how much time that is in the real universe,
course,
but it seems like it's once a week. Your guess is this ship does not have a navigator. The ship is running off of warp beacons, so it has to drop back out of the ocean to kind of reorient itself around the North Star of the Eye of Terror and then just blast off again. So you know that when that is happening, you will be able to send the message out, and you need 2 more cycles of this to be fully prepared to send the message. But in the middle of the night, while you are asleep, Karl's courage breaks. Karl is still heavily scarred, recovering from injuries. Karl is seen you swear the oath and do the work, but you seem to like the work a disturbing amount. You never would have been given any of this scale of technology, Flynch. Not in where you worked in the Sanguinary Worlds. You were part of the Blood Pact, so you got to work on like tanks and vehicles, but nobody was going to be like, here's a battleship, fix it however you want. It's a big, big ask. So, Karl, you sneak out of the shared space during this cycle, and you send the message early. And you return, and you don't tell Flynch. You just send the message and go back, and you are both midway through the next cycle, working away. Again, there's no night or day in this space. There's just the portable lamp, and you both have the ability to have an internal chronometer because, Karl, you have your brain thing that lets you display data inside your eye, which is a great way to keep track of time if it's something that's helping you stay anything approaching sane. And Flynch, you've got so many internal chronometers and a bunch of brains attached to your brain and all that stuff going on. So you can both keep track of it. You are midday when all of a sudden the lights start going out down the hall from both of you where you're working. And it is not, oh, the lights go out, it's a movie where there's a little bit of shadow. It is pure blackness, just closing in square by metal square of the flooring you can see in the distance towards you. And you both turn to try to escape, and the doors slam down around you. These are doors that you were not aware there was a system in place. And Flynch, when you try to access the computer system you've been using to open doors, you can see it's been overridden by a master key that you were not aware existed. Someone has a key they can physically plug in that is not in the system in any sort of coded way. And the lights go down around you and go down around you and go down around you. And you just hear laughter closing in. And then you hear screaming. And it's not a single scream. It's a scream overlaid and a scream overlaid and a scream overlaid and a scream. And you begin to realize as these screams loop, deafening you in the pure blackness, that these are the 120 screams of the previous members of the crew, all of whom had been recorded during their torture. And both of you just sink into absolute gibbering panic, unable to strategize, unable to figure out what's going on. And then both of you are immediately knocked out. You wake up separately, unable to see each other in your own rooms. These are your sleeping quarters, where you had felt the most safe. But, Karl, you awake nude, strapped to a cross that has been raised on poles out of the floor. And you awake because all of a sudden you feel a staggering pain as a spike is driven through your left wrist into the cross. And you see that it is, oh God, I forgot, Thrauk, Jesus Christ. He's just an image in my brain now.
Yeah.
It is Thrauk. He is outside of his armor. He is just a hulking form in a blood-stained robe, covered in grime, with black hair just hanging down, blocking his face. There is so little light in this room, but then you realize it's just so you can see what's happening to you. Thrauk lives in darkness, but fear needs a little bit of light to be able to see what's going on in torture. He goes through and stabs spikes through the rest of your limbs, pinning you to this cross, at which point you realize he's kept one gauntlet from his power armor on in his right hand. The blades have been retracted, so the long blades are not there, but when you look at the fingertips, which he raises up and just runs through the air in front of your face, doing the face-off face waterfall, but of horror, you can see that each of those fingertips has been carved to a monomolecular bladed tip. These are sharper than any knife and can be used for any purpose. And Thrauk will say to you, "Why do you think they'll save you? They left you at false hope. They left you to die, and you marched out believing in a brighter tomorrow." Oh, it's just not going to work out for you the way you want. You saw the demons. Khorne sent a demon to save you. It died on the spot. And if it had lived, it would have killed you. Why do you worship these pathetic lies from the warp?
And I think through a cloud of immense pain and probably a significant amount of fear, Karl, I think, just chokes out, not lies. No lies. Truth. Truth in death. Yes. I haven't been forgotten.
No? Do you think they'll save you? Do you think they'll come down here for a broken, terrified, coward? Oh. You think there's truth in death? Maybe I should teach you about the truth in life. Because I'll tell you right now, you die last.
No. No, kill me.
Oh.
No.
Oh, yes. Yes. Start there, and then start praying, and then maybe one day you'll pray to me, and then you'll learn that prayer means nothing. And at that point, Thrauk starts to flay you. Just peeling back layer after layer of skin. And Thrauk spends hours doing this. This is not, it's not killing you. It's very cautiously walking you right to the brink of death.
God, I'm going to be sick.
Sorry, Laura. Sorry, Laura, from Ryan. Thrauk's just doing what Thrauk's doing. But it is systematic. It is unpredictable. Breaks are built in that allow you to recover just enough to make sure that you never pass out. He's working you top to bottom. And then at the end of the session, he lays the skin back on you and sprays you with a healing unguent that starts the skin rebonding back. But he does not take you off the cross. And he just leaves you in the room alone. Meanwhile, Flynch, you wake up in the engineerium space that you were used to. But instead of being tied down face up, you are mounted on a cross that is face down, almost a surgical table that has been set into the room. And you hear Thrauk enter. And he just says, You swore an oath to me, but you helped him, and you begged them. Oh, were you trying to lie?
No, I didn't send anything. He did it. He did it.
Let's just say you just realized now that he sent the message because you did not know this.
Yeah.
Because he snuck out at night.
Yeah.
Yes, but he's not smart enough to do that. We know our abilities. We know our gifts. I've watched him struggle to open a door. You, however, you found the programming. You've helped the claw become sharper each day. And only you could make that happen, which means I believe you lack commitment to your oaths.
If I'd have done any of that, you never would have known.
Oh, you think you could teach me about cowardice? You think you could teach me about oath breaking, about fleeing, about abandoning all that's left behind you? I'm a Night Lord. This is what we do. I let my father die in another room while someone took his life for a false war. I've broken every oath I've ever made. I started out with a legion, and then a company, and then a squad, and then a cabal, and now there is only me, and justice, and fear.
And a breaking ship.
Yes. Oh, you think I'm going to kill you? You think that's the lesson being taught? No. I can't stop being a Night Lord because they can't stop seeing the Nostraman at my core. You think you can go somewhere else without me, which means it's time to mark you as mine in a way you will never escape. And he begins tattooing and carving and flaying you. But yours is not just a needless torture. Karl is being tortured to create pain. You are being tortured to create a work of art. But what you are realizing as you analyze your systems as this happens, as it all moves forward, is he's not just flaying away skin and muscle and laying it back into place for no purpose. He is carving the runes of his legion's language and his legion's iconography and his own personal identification numbers into your bones. He is burning them into your muscles. He is tattooing them onto your skin to the point that for you to be able to hide the fact that you've been marked as the property of a Night Lord, you would have to replace your entire body. And that's to get you, even then, psychic scans would reveal with the sheer scale of pain and agony that this is causing, that this is a memory you won't be able to remove. This is shaking you to the core. And it takes place over weeks for both of you, where he will show up and most confusingly feed you, bathe you, water you, clean up the mess that you're making, and then come back and torture you to the nth degree.
I am totally disassociating from all imagery that you're creating.
Great.
This is fucking disturbing.
That's why this needed a disclaimer. I was honest about this.
Yeah.
Over the course of this does cause a part of both of your minds to break, which is why we're going to start playing with malignancies and corruption.
Oh, fun.
So could you both roll me a d10?
One moment, please.
I know, we're getting different dice here because Genesys is fucking confusing.
I rolled a 9.
9.
Blood and syrup dice.
All right, Karl, you now suffer from bloodlust.
Oh, hey, that's nice.
Your loyalty to Khorne combined with the sheer level of torture you have suffered means that the red haze closes down over your vision faster than it ever has before. So once you have suffered one or more wounds in combat, you have to succeed at a hard 3 purple cool check to allow your enemies to flee, be captured, or incapacitated rather than you killing them outright, even if you showed up to try to take them alive.
How much damage was that? Once I have received X amount, what was that?
Oh, it is just if you've received one or more wounds. Like if you get injured.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Then it's going to be, you have to pass a check to be able to leave someone alive or take them captive. Once per encounter, though, when you are making a melee attack, you can ignore an enemy's melee defense.
Okay. And sorry, what? It's a hard what check?
Cool check.
Thank you.
Because it's got to be instinctual. Yep. Then normally you would suffer more corruption to ignore an enemy's melee defense, but you are in the fucking Blood Pact, so you're cool. That shit doesn't keep adding up for you. Can you roll me a d10 flinch?
Yeah, I got a 1.
Oh, beautiful. You are dark-hearted.
Ooh.
Which means you've become increasingly cruel, callous, and vindictive.
Sweet.
All charm and leadership checks made by the character add... Oh, Laura, do you have that symbol thing that you showed?
Whoops.
Laura's got a little chart of what the Genesys dice look like. You add 2 threat automatically to any charm or leadership check. But when you are making a deception or coercion check, you can upgrade your dice pool once for free. So you essentially get a free story point if you are using deception or coercion.
Say that again, Ryan. For what checks?
For charm and leadership, you add 2 threat automatically.
Yep.
For deception or coercion, you get a free 1 like story point upgrade.
Cool.
This extreme violence again takes place over a long period of time. Karl, each night as you are being tortured, the Night Lord speaks to you and just demands that you renounce the gods. He is clearly an atheist. This is the ongoing battle between the two of you, is him trying to get you to denounce your faith. You managed to hold on through this whole thing because I think Karl's got that in him. We've established he's an extreme convert who legitimately believes. But I mean, can you roll me a?
It's not easy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you roll me a cool or a discipline?
Yes, let me scroll back up here.
Difficulty 5.
Oh my gosh. 1 success, 5 threat.
Yeah, this checks out. So you still absolutely have your faith. This may even be a trial set before you by the gods. This is possible if they're pushing you because you know you were a coward as a member of the Imperium and you became over to the Blood Pact and started to prove yourself, but that is a hard thing to believe in the past. But if it is a trial, you don't know if you can win. You can't see a path to victory. And if it's not a trial, then it is really bad because that would shake the face. So I think that's the threat. The success is this is a trial. This is a test from the gods. And the threat is I really need this to be a test from the gods and being simultaneously aware of that kind of doublespeak. Flynch, can you roll me either a cool or a discipline?
Yeah, I'll do discipline.
Difficulty 5. No, 4. 4.
Okay.
Again, he's got a real upper hand in how he's fucking with you here.
Yeah. All right. Is that everything?
Yep.
I'm just gonna roll. 1 success, 1 threat, believe it or not.
You guys, so determined.
Hanging in there.
Flynch, you are determined that Thrauk does not own you, that there is still a way to betray your way out of this, despite the ongoing torture. You guys officially deserve your spots in the Death Brigade after these 2 checks. You still think there's a way out. You still think that this is like, you'll play along as long as it's advantageous.
Yeah.
The threat is, you know you have been so marked up that it will be nearly impossible to convince anybody that you did not enter into this willingly or are not like a convert or a dedicated member of Thrauk's team. So there's also, you want to get back to Gower. You don't want to spend eternity here, but it's going to be a real hard sell if you get out. So it may be easier if you just stuck to Team Thrauk. And that's the little inkling in the back of your mind that carries forward just from the threat. You're still determined that, like, I'm Flynch, you don't get to own that. And then as soon as the torture begins, it stops. Thrauk disappears. You wake up unstrapped. You wake up allowed to get back to work. And there are no comments over time. It's just back to the silence of the ship and the plan that you've made. When you both find each other as these like scarred wrecks of people, what happens? You both are freed. You're both, you, Flynch, are covered in Night Lord's iconography. You're like, I'm happy for you to describe what you end up looking like after this for both of you so we can know what it looks like when you come out of the torture. But you both stumble into each other after the time in hell. And again, neither of you knows what happens to the other person. You had no idea. You're just walking into a room. What do you both look like? And what happens at this meeting?
So Flynch still looks kind of like Toby Jones underneath. The little hair stubble she had has just been completely replaced by scarring and tattoos all over her head. And there's a pattern of, so she has all of these symbols and runes all down her arms that can be seen, but along the lines, there's also like deep gashes that are barely healed. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Karl looks like he is wearing an ill-fitted Karl suit at this point, I think. I think he looks a little melted. I don't, you can tell me, Ryan, like how much care in the last one Thrauk would have taken to having my skin heal. I'm assuming it's like, it's on you. You're fine.
It's like, it's on you. It's your nerve endings have been like fried. Some of them are still exposed. Things are in the wrong place. Like everything hurts.
Yeah. So just a little bit scrambled looking, purely on the surface of just his skin. And in his one good eye, I think just like a 1,000-yard stare. But in seeing Flynch covered in Night Lord iconography.
Yep, tattoos, blade cuts. And I will say Flynch has the Night Lord's logo tattooed over her throat, over her mouth, over her eyes, and then again on her forehead. So it's just like no grotesque can hide the number of Night Lord symbols on
seeing
Flynch.
that, knowing that I, in a moment of very clear thinking, sent out the distress beacon, and that Flynch, who built it, swore an oath to Thrauk and is wearing his iconography, must have betrayed me. And that if this is a trial, I must be here as a counter or foil to Flynch's betrayal. That's what my trial is Flynch went back on her oaths, and that cannot go unpunished. And that is why I survived. The gods knew it would happen, and the gods put me here to stop her. And so I let out a guttural shriek and run at Flynch as fast as I can.
This episode of the one-shot Blood Pact Requiem features Tyler Hewitt at Tyler_Hewitt on Twitter, Laura Hamstra at Hamstring on Twitter, Del Borovic at Deltastic on Twitter, and our Game Master Ryan LaPlante at the Ryan LaPlante on Twitter. This episode's sound was edited and mixed by Laura Hamstra, and the one-shot's logo was created by Decapitated Markers. This show's theme music is Gothic Trip with Thunderhorse by Damiano Baldoni, and our ads use the tracks No Control and Chiefs by Jazzar, JAHZZAR, all available at freemusicarchive.org. When it comes to Dumdums and Dice, you can visit our website at dumdumdice.com, our Twitter and Instagram at dumdumdice, and our Facebook at facebook.com/dumdumdice. We have merchandise available at redbubble.com/people/dumdumdice. And most importantly, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/dumdumdice. That's DUMBDICE. Ave Imperator, and death to all the heretics.
Dumdums and Dice has to give a special thank you to the supreme beings of our Patreon at this time. The Half-Blind Prophet, Christopher Little, Sue One, George Dolby, Richard Cranium, Gavin and Abby McDonald, Logan, Fire Unfriendly, Grandma Likes D&D, Alan, Stabby Stranger, Glitch Trick, Roman Brown, Spot Allen, Flynn1138, Alarain Okapi, OMG It's Big Nick, D&D and Things, Norma Byers, Schrodinger's Pepper, Guy Edwards, Flea Unit, Madre de Gatos, Lady Maiden, Melissa Rain, Nithrian, and Jill and Noel LaPlante. If you want your name to be added to this list, you can join our Patreon too at patreon.com/dumdumdice. Thanks to them, and a little bit of thanks to you.